Hi, I'm Gary Duquette. I'm an artist. I live here in Brooksville, Florida. The type of art I do and what I love the most is watercolor painting. So I've been doing that for 40 years, and I fell into a couple other things in my life other than that, doing wall murals. I started when I lost my job in a printing company about 25 years ago and went into business for myself. My daughter's dance studio would do these recitals, and because I didn't have anything to do that I lost my job, I started painting for them for free, just these giant pieces of cardboard to go back behind their little recital. And next thing you know, people start calling me to do murals. So I got into doing wall murals, both indoors and outdoors. Up in Virginia, I probably did 40. And now I've done 6 or 7 around town here. That's something I really love because you're trying to find out what the customer wants. What is it that you want me to produce on your wall? And they have to have a lot of trust to let me come in there and slap paint on it. You have to have trust. So finding out what it is they truly want, and I'll usually do sketches, and I'll make my drawings to scale so that when I go in there, they know what they're getting and they're going to be happy with it. The wine, coffee, and beer paintings, I started actually becoming more popular in watercolor, which is my favorite thing to do. But I do them just like watercolors. I use the same traditional techniques in them where the white is just the paper, and no paint is used. So, and I'm using wine and coffee and beer. And how I fell into that was at my studio that I had up in Virginia, and I had put on a little show for a local artist that had watercolor paintings of wine things, bottles and glasses and the grapes and the cheese and stuff, and they were all watercolors. And one of my regular customers came to the opening, had maybe too much of my sangria, and he came up to me and he says, "Gary, why don't you just paint with the damn wine?" He says, "Why has it got to be about wine things?" So I thought about it, and the next day I called the lady up that had the show and say, "Hey, I'm going to go buy a cheap bottle of wine. You want to come over here and try and paint with it?" And we did. And it kind of went on from there. The wine paintings, I don't use a brush for the most part, except for to wet the paper. I paint with a piece of cork and a grapevine. I'll slice pieces of cork off the top of the cork and use those, and maybe a grapevine instead of a brush. And I experimented with that because when I started this whole thing up in Virginia, I had a custom frame shop, and somebody said, "Well, why don't you put a little cutout underneath the painting and put a cork in there as a decoration?" So I did. And one of my customers I used to paint with twigs sometimes, and I would put the twig in there, little tiny watercolors. And one of my customers that bought one of those saw it and said, "Did you paint that with that piece of cork?" And I said, "No, but maybe it's a good idea." So that's when I started painting with a cork. And I found out that it's almost the exact absorbency as a brush, this piece of cork. When I'm finished with the painting, the piece of cork that I use to do it, it gets sewn into the painting and become part of it. So I believe I'm one of the few artists that gives my brush away with the painting. On the back of the painting, for its completion, I'll write a certificate of authenticity showing the wine I used, what winery it was. I try to use the local ones around here in Brooksville, and then and a picture of the bottle that I used is complimentary along with the certificate next to it. So, some of my favorite images I've been collecting professionally to place inside the book I'm writing. This is one of my favorites. It's called Yawning. It's an alligator. The Sparcia Insieme Red is the only wine I've found that when I put it into water, it actually turns blue. So you'll see there's some blue tones in here, or that wine placed into water on my watercolor paper, but when I place the same wine on dry paper, it'll be a purplish kind of red color and doesn't turn blue. Only into water will it turn blue, and it's the only wine I've found that does that. And these are the others, one with beer, a deer with beer, and the lighthouse is with coffee, and the same techniques. They're just like watercolors. I probably discovered I had talent early on. I did a lot of drew cartoons and coloring with crayons. I mean, you know, but being a young kid in New England, I played a lot of baseball, I played golf, I played hockey. I was more into sports as a young kid, and I went to college and played on the golf team at Syracuse University for 2 years, and I was taking engineering. But after 2 years' time, the scholarship I got wasn't worth it enough. It was a very expensive school, so I was going to transfer out. And like 2 weeks before the semester started, the next semester started, I got a letter in the mail from Jacksonville University right here in Florida saying that I was accepted to go to college. And I didn't remember sending an application in, but I said, well, I'm accepted. The tuition seems fair. I packed up the car, and Ma's like, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going to Florida. I'm going to college. So I came down here, and I figured, well, engineering was probably similar to marine biology or something like that. Maybe I'll go into that. I'm in Florida now. So I go to the registrar's office. I couldn't get any biology courses. I couldn't get any of the courses I wanted. And the girl says, well, why don't you just take an art course? It'll be an easy A, and you won't need a book, read a book. And I said, well, I don't want an art course. So she says, well, you can go ask the professors, which I did. And they all said, no. So I went back to the same girl at the registrar's office, and I said, well, give me the damn art course. What should I take? And she says, take watercolor, and Juan's our best instructor in the college. So I said, good. And after one class, I fell in love with it, and I said, okay, I'm going to change my major to art now. and the fact that I couldn't get what I wanted ended up being a turning point in my entire life. The first one I did was the word Brooksville on the side of Mountaineer Coffee. That was the first mural. And each letter goes across, is painted with a different theme, something to do with Hernando County, except for the one letter that has a mountain on it. And people say, what's a mountain got to do with Florida? I said, well, it's Mountaineer Coffee. So that was the first one I did. So you see that coming right into town. And then there's the angel wings. That's at the Methodist Church, I think it is, Youth Center on Main Street. It's just angel wings on the wall so that people can go up to it. It was sized so that anyone from 6'5" to 3'2" could stand in front of it and have wings. So and that was a fun one, and that came about through the Brooksville Main Street thing. There's a couple others downtown. One at a place called the Teal Plank. That one's inside, and it's 65 foot long across their whole building, and it's a depiction of the Weeki Wachee Springs. And I started it as a bird sanctuary, and then it went around a corner and went underwater where there's manatees, and then it keeps on going further on down to where we went to Alligator Alley, like the weeds, and there's alligators swimming around in the back of the building. And other than that, there's a new one that I did at Once Upon a Vine, which is on Spring Hill Drive. It's a place where you can get wine made, and I did a very large one there for them of some Italian cities. And I painted the steps back in the parking lot back behind 105 North Main Street. Come downtown to the Brooksville Art Stroll Saturday, May 15th, and meet the artists. I'll have plenty of my artwork there, some even for sale.